From ideation to development of your MVP, congratulations, because now you got to switch your hat to become an SRE. And top 5 of my technologies in my SRE bucket are cloud databases. But before we unpack that particular term, let's take a moment to break down what's kind of the fundamentals of a cloud database, or as you may see online, database as a service. Well, we know with cloud providers, you're going to have different data centers located in different geographies around the world, which is why we love working with them. And all their services are dispersed or actually load balanced worldwide across all these different data centers. So you get to take advantage of that particular ease first. Now, in the context of databases, first thing we're going to have is that ease of use. So across all these data centers, you have easy ways, depending on the database technology, an easy way to onboard and use that particular technology. And that's particularly effective if you are working with multiple databases. And they can be, of course, NoSQL or SQL ones there. All right, that's always going to be something that you can have. And also, different versions of these databases will be available for you to use. So I like to throw that into the maintenance part, being able to say you don't have to worry about versions, or it's all available for you to use. Second on top of my list that I love is the deployment. There'll be multiple deployment options at your ease at a button click to use. Most notably, you'll have shared or dedicated resources that you can use. And you may see that mixed in with the term called bare metal. Shared is where you're actually sharing with others. All right, just to quickly get going. When you have low traffic, it's kind of good to get going, especially from a cost perspective. But there's nothing like being able to have that option to execute your own dedicated hardware to running your particular data storage application, the storage portion of your own architecture that you have. And lastly, disaster recovery and scalability. Let's kind of put those both into the same bucket from the perspective that we all know what disaster recovery is. When things do occur, we don't have to alleviate that concern off our mind, because the data will be able to be restored with one click. Usually backups are being generated on some schedule, usually nightly or incremental full database backups. We have that there. And also already deploying the application to be in a highly scalable manner, a highly available manner, where you have your primary, secondaries, all that architecture gets obfuscated from you, where it's just available for you to use. Now, this all sounds great, but this does actually map out to our concerns, our challenges that we have once we put on that SRE app. So I've built my application, and I know, let's take the perspective that I'm just starting out. We know that we spent a lot of time building our application, all right? And that's generally been from the perspective of, I've gotten started and I said, hey, I just want one instance of this, whether it's a SQL or a NoSQL. We are in the age of polyglot architectures, so a lot of my architectures start out with both types, depending on the demands of my application and what I need to do. But I'm really focusing on time that my perspective was different when I was in my development mode. I'm just concerned with getting it up and running. I usually worry about the other stuff later, if I'm actually the person that deals with that. Usually that can be somebody else's perspective to actually deal with too, if you have different job roles. But as a full stack developer and as technologists, when you're in the full stack mode, you have to always make these decisions. But our goal is to get that up and running and to actually know what's there. Secondly is the scalability of options there. Without cloud databases, or including that, you have to learn the individual ways that each database technology goes on their particular highly available model. So I did the primary, secondary, there's different architectures, different concerns for each that you have to be aware of to work. And lastly, what we all dread in our MVP applications is chaos occurring. All right. You have to definitely have concerns about preparing what happens when something disastrous occurs. We can force these to happen, with chaos engineering. That's what we generally like to know. But I want to say when the chaos occurs, what do? We have to know about our own disaster recovery and how to function, have workflows, have scripts for this. And when you think about all these three perspectives, that is an exactly even more time that we have to dedicate to this perspective. But we know that our time should be really dedicated to evolving our code, doing new releases, especially when you have a combination of front end technologies, all right? You have web and you have mobile apps that we have. That's not a good looking iPhone there, but it's what it's intended to be. iPhone there. So different perspectives, APIs. There's a lot of technology you can kind of get into that come into play here. So we can alleviate all these challenges once we get that hat on by saying, hey, cloud databases is where I should be. And often this is where I actually start. In my development process while I'm building my MVP, I'll start working with my cloud databases. You may say, why would you do that? Well, first, from a time perspective, I'll have that ease of use. I actually will be able to, I will actually be in an advantage to use or think about using more types of databases because they're going to all be available to me. All right. And I can easily implement them and get going without having to learn each different technology's way of connecting and everything there. Secondly, the deployment. It takes care of my scalability concerns because now I can start out small while I'm in development. One instance, well, how we always know we start. Let's keep it honest. All right. And then when I want to get ready to go from MVP to production, I can scale that up and immediately become highly available. All right. And lastly, disaster recovery. Already there for me. We know we have to plan for this. As we start out in development, we're just trying to get things running. We don't have time to really think about what could happen, but our goal is to have more users using our application because that's where we understand how it's going to function under load. And you may have other certain requirements as well. We know that we're in the US, we build applications, but we know we're in a global economy now. People from around the world will be using your application. So there may be other concerns. I may want to have users in Singapore or in India or somewhere where they, if the servers are located on my own and I'm in the US, that there is a certain round trip. Or Australia, there is something you can't deny. It has to travel that far. So response times may be slow. Well, using this, I'm able to set up different instances in those places or just let the database as a service spread out my data across its actual geocenters. This is just one way to think about this perspective. I want to hear about your experiences with cloud databases or database as a service. Tell us about your favorite ones to use, your architecture tips. And as always, technically yours, Senor España.